He was the kind of student most people never really noticed, not because he was strange or because he didn't want friends, but because he lived in his own quiet world. He wasn't loud, he didn't joke around, and he never tried to be the center of anything. If anything, he preferred being invisible. He always sat at the back corner of the classroom, almost hidden behind the taller students. Whenever the teacher asked a question, he kept his eyes on his notebook so no one would call on him. He wasn't shy in a weak way, he just believed people didn't really care about what he had to say. And honestly, no one had ever given him a reason to think otherwise. Most days in school passed the same for him. He would listen, take notes, quietly observe others, and leave when the bell rang. After school he rushed home, not because he hated being outside, but because that was the only place he felt truly comfortable. At home, he could be himself. He could practice his music without anyone watching, without anyone judging or expecting anything. Music was the only thing that gave him confidence. But even then, he never imagined himself performing in front of people. It didn't feel like his world. It felt like a dream he wasn't meant to chase. One day, the atmosphere in the classroom was a little different. The teacher walked in with a lighter mood than usual. It wasn't exam season, and most students were relaxed and joking around. A couple of students were talking loudly, a few were laughing at something on their phones, and everyone was just waiting for the period to pass. The teacher tried to start the lesson but quickly realized no one was paying attention. Instead of getting angry, the teacher decided to go along with the mood of the day. "All right," the teacher said with a small smile. "If you all want some fun, let's do something different." Everyone perked up. Whenever a teacher said those words, it usually meant something unexpected was coming. The teacher scanned the room, trying to think of something to lighten the mood. That's when the teacher's eyes landed on the quiet student in the back, the one who hardly ever participated. For a moment, the teacher thought, he never gets involved. Maybe I should bring him out today. The teacher called his name. The sound of it echoed through the classroom because it was rare to hear it spoken out loud. Every head turned toward him. He froze for a second, not sure what to do. The teacher smiled and said, "Come on, why don't you come here and play something for us? Just for fun. Play as a little joke to entertain your classmates." The students started laughing, not in a mean way, but in that typical teenage way where they assume nothing serious will happen. They assumed he wouldn't know how to play anything. To them, he was just the quiet kid who never spoke. They didn't expect anything impressive, and maybe that's what made the moment even more uncomfortable for him. He didn't like attention. Even now, he wasn't sure if the teacher was being playful or genuinely wanted him to participate. But either way, he felt trapped between the pressure of the classroom and the respect he had for the teacher. He stood up slowly. His heart was thumping so loudly it might as well have been echoing in the room. He wasn't angry at the teacher. He knew it wasn't done to hurt him. But he wished the floor could open up and swallow him. Every step he took toward the front of the class felt like walking on a stage he didn't belong to. The students were smiling, whispering, nudging each other. Nobody expected anything. Some were waiting for something funny. Others were waiting to see him panic and go back to his seat. He reached the front and glanced at the teacher, hoping for some sort of escape, some chance to retreat. But the teacher just gave him an encouraging nod. It wasn't meant to pressure him. It was meant to say, "You can do this." But he wasn't sure he could. He wasn't sure he wanted to reveal the one thing that mattered to him. He looked at the musical instrument placed on the desk. It wasn't the one he used at home, but it was close enough. His hands hovered above it for a moment. He felt the weight of every eye in the room staring at him. The classroom that was full of noise just moments ago now felt strangely quiet. Everyone was waiting. Maybe some were waiting for something funny to happen, but some were curious too. He took a deep breath. His mind went back to the hours he spent practicing at home. The evenings when he sat by himself, lost in melodies no one else had ever heard. He had played with emotion, with passion, with a love that came from somewhere deep inside. But this was different. This wasn't the safety of his room. This was a classroom full of students who didn't know him, who had never noticed him, who had no idea what he was capable of. His hands were slightly shaking, but he placed his fingers on the instrument anyway. For a second, he considered playing something simple, something quick, just to get it over with. But another part of him whispered, "What if, just this once, you show them who you really are?" He didn't know where the thought came from. Maybe it was the frustration of being invisible. Maybe it was the desire to be seen just one time. Or maybe it was simply fate. Whatever it was, it made him decide to try not for the class. Not for the teacher, but for himself. He closed his eyes for just a moment and let out a slow breath. The room was so quiet he could hear someone dropping a pencil in the back. Then he started to play the first soft note. It was gentle, almost like a whisper. The kind of sound that doesn't grab attention but slowly pulls people in. Some students were still smiling, thinking he was just trying, nothing more. But after a few seconds, the tone of the classroom began to shift. The laughter faded. The whispering stopped. The room became still. As if something unexpected was beginning, he could feel the instrument responding to his touch the way it always did at home. And slowly his nerves started to melt away. The more he played, the more he forgot about the people watching him. He wasn't performing for the class anymore. He was simply playing the music he loved. His fingers moved carefully but confidently, creating a melody that floated through the entire room. The teacher took a small step forward, surprised by the sudden change in the atmosphere. It wasn't what the teacher expected when asking him to play as a joke. No one expected this. Not the teacher. Not the students. And definitely not him. Within a minute, the classroom felt completely different. The same people who had been laughing a few minutes earlier now watched him in silence. Some leaned forward without realizing it. Some looked at him with a kind of quiet respect. Some looked confused. How had they never known he could do this? He opened his eyes for a second and saw the expressions on their faces. Shock, curiosity, amazement. No one was laughing anymore. A wave of confidence rushed through him. Not arrogance, just the realization that maybe he wasn't invisible after all. Maybe he had something worth showing. His heartbeat slowed. His breathing steadied. His fingers flowed with ease now. The melody grew richer, warmer, more emotional. The kind of sound that doesn't just enter the ears, it enters the heart, and right there, in that classroom full of people who never really saw him before, he felt something he never thought he'd feel. Seen, heard, valued. No idea how this moment would change the rest of his life. He only knew one thing: this performance no longer felt like a joke. It felt like the beginning of something real. When the last note left his fingertips, it felt like the whole classroom had taken a breath and forgotten to let it out. For a few seconds, no one moved. No one said a word. It was as if time froze, not because something dramatic had happened, but because something honest had touched everyone sitting there. And he wasn't sure how to react to all of it. The silence felt heavier than the noise ever did. It wasn't the awkward kind, it was the meaningful kind. The kind people feel when they experience something they never expected to witness. He slowly lifted his hands off the instrument, unsure if he should look up or just quietly return to his seat. But the moment he looked around, he saw something he had never seen before in this room. Every single student was staring at him, not with jokes, not with boredom, not with confusion, but with a soft sort of respect. The kind he didn't think he would ever get from them. The teacher was the first to speak. "I didn't know you could play like that," the teacher said softly, almost whispering. The teacher's voice carried a mix of surprise and pride, as if they had just discovered a hidden treasure inside their own classroom. It wasn't loud praise. It wasn't dramatic. It was simple, sincere, and full of warmth. And sometimes that kind of recognition means more than applause. But then something unexpected happened. A soft clap began from one corner of the room. Just one student. Then another joined. Then another. And within seconds, the whole room was filled with clapping. Not wild cheering, not loud screaming, just a steady, heartfelt applause that felt pure. It wasn't for entertainment. It was for effort, for courage, for someone who finally stepped out of the shadows. He felt his face warm up. It wasn't embarrassment, it was something closer to disbelief. He had never imagined that people who barely noticed him would ever clap for something he did. For a moment, he didn't know where to look. His heart pounded again, but this time it wasn't out of fear. It was out of something that felt like happiness, mixed with relief. He glanced at the teacher again, who gave him a small, proud smile. It wasn't the same playful smile from earlier, the one that had encouraged him to play as a joke. This smile meant something else. It meant the teacher now understood him a little better than before. Maybe even respected him in a new way. He nodded slightly, as if thanking the teacher without saying a word. He walked back toward his seat, and something strange happened along the way. Students who usually didn't talk to him moved their chairs aside to give him space. Some gave him a thumbs up. Others whispered things like, "That was really good," or, "Bro, where did you learn that?" A few even looked guilty, as if realizing they had judged him too quickly all this time. He didn't know what to say, so he just kept his head down and offered small smiles. But inside he felt lighter. Almost like he wasn't the same person who walked nervously to the front of the room 10 minutes earlier. The rest of the class passed in a gentle calm. No one went back to being loud. No one joked about what happened. The atmosphere was different, not tense, just peaceful. It was as if everyone was processing what they had just witnessed. Even the teacher seemed unusually thoughtful that day, occasionally glancing at him as if still trying to understand how such talent had stayed hidden for so long. After the bell rang, he packed his things slowly. Normally, he would leave the classroom quickly, trying to avoid bumping into anyone. But today, students approached him before he could even stand up. One said, "You should join the music competition next month." Another added, "You're seriously good, man. You should show this more often." Someone else asked if he gave lessons or if he could help them learn a few chords. He didn't know how to respond to all that sudden attention. It wasn't negative, it wasn't overwhelming, but it was new. Completely new. He had spent so long blending into the background that being seen like this felt both exciting and confusing. As he walked out of the classroom, the teacher gently stopped him near the door. "You should be proud of yourself," the teacher said. "What you did today wasn't a joke. It was something real. Something special." He nodded again. It wasn't that he didn't want to speak, he just couldn't find the right words. How do you explain to someone that they just gave you one of the most important moments of your life? On his way home, he replayed everything in his mind. The nerves, the silence, the applause, the compliments. It felt unreal. But there was one part that stayed in his heart more than anything. The moment he realized people were actually listening. Not out of curiosity, not out of boredom, but because they wanted to hear him. That feeling stayed with him long after school ended that day. At home, he sat on his bed with his instrument beside him. He touched it gently, almost like thanking it for being there in that moment. It had always been his escape, his safe space, but now it had become something more. It had introduced him to a new part of himself, a part he didn't know he needed. He practiced again that evening, but it felt different. He wasn't playing in secret anymore. He wasn't hiding. He was exploring. He was growing. Even though the world outside didn't know his whole story. At least his classroom had seen a glimpse of it. The next day at school, he walked through the hallways with the same quiet steps, but something was different. Students who never noticed him before nodded as he walked past. Some smiled at him. Some asked if he would play again during break time. A group of younger students whispered excitedly when they recognized him. From the story spreading around, he wasn't trying to be famous. He didn't want to be, but being acknowledged even a little felt special. During lunch, the teacher approached him while walking through the corridor. "There's an event next week," the teacher said softly. "We could use someone like you. No pressure. Think about it." He didn't promise anything, but the teacher's trust meant the world to him. He walked away with a small smile without even realizing it. The truth was, he had always believed people like him weren't meant to stand out. He thought talent only mattered if the world already expected it from you. He thought quiet people stayed quiet, unnoticed, unheard. But that one moment, just one unexpected moment where he was asked to play as a joke, turned into something he never expected. It gave him courage. It gave him confidence. It made him realize that sometimes people don't notice you simply because You never show them who you are. And sometimes it takes just one moment, one chance to rewrite how the world sees you. And even how you see yourself. Weeks passed, but the memory of that day stayed fresh in his mind. Not because of the applause, but because of the feeling he felt while playing. The calm, the confidence, the sense of belonging. It was the moment he stopped hiding the part of himself that was meant to shine. And slowly, without even trying, the world around him changed. Students who once overlooked him now respected him. Teachers who thought he was just quiet now knew he had something special. And he himself began to believe that maybe, just maybe, he was capable of more than he ever imagined. The funny thing was, everything started from a simple request meant to lighten the mood. The teacher didn't mean anything deep. The class didn't expect anything life-changing. But sometimes life changes in simple moments. Sometimes your biggest turning point arrives disguised as a joke. He didn't become popular. He didn't become a school celebrity. But he became something more meaningful. He became someone who believed in himself. And in the end, that was enough. More than enough. It was the first time he felt proud of who he was. And definitely not the last.